You'll see on social media from influencers and other posts that when you move abroad, life is just better, right? It's cafes in the middle of the day, it's long lunches, and all of your problems are solved. Life is peachy. But the reality isn't quite as beautiful as what you see in 30-second reels on TikTok or Instagram. Instead, what you get hit with is loneliness and having to rebuild new connections with brand new people from all over the world. You get hit with challenging bureaucracy where you might not understand the language or the expectations or customs around the way things work. And moving abroad doesn't solve your problems. Guess what? They come with you on the plane. And what moving abroad does is it magnifies those things that you might have been ignoring in your life. So in today's video, I want to talk to you about what you don't see, what influencers and social media doesn't show you, and why they all miss the most important thing, that going through these changes can actually leave you with something that is incredibly valuable and will fundamentally change your life. Now, I quickly just want to say that some of the points I'm going to cover today are actually somewhat similar to what I covered in my 6 months abroad video, but I want to make a clear distinction that this is more about the underlying current of what moves abroad and not necessarily my own personal stories. However, I will be sharing some personal stories to help drive some of my points home. Before Spain, my life looked fine from the outside. I had a stable job, I lived in a decent city, and I was checking all the boxes. But I felt like a passenger in my own life, that quiet hum of, is this it, that I really couldn't shake. My outlet was scrolling, as we all do, hours of expat content, people living slower, cheaper, more interesting lives in Europe, and every post felt like proof to me that something better was possible. And the version of Spain I saw online was easily convincing. I mean, I had been to Spain myself over years and years, so for me, none of it was necessarily new, but seeing people actually live in these easy communities with having long lunches, this relaxed work to live culture, all of life's frictions just seemingly gone. And I'm not saying that creators are wrong. A lot of that is real, not just for immigrants and expats living abroad, but also for the locals. But it was like I was watching a how-to guide, and it isn't that. So I started planning a move, and if I'm being honest with myself, it really wasn't a plan, it was an escape from my job, my routine, and some stuff about myself that I didn't necessarily want to look at. I genuinely believed that the version of me who stepped off the plane in Madrid would be a different person, lighter, more confident, free from anxiety and the habits that kept tripping me up in my old life back in the States. I thought geography could do that. It can't, but I had to find that out the hard way. To hammer this point home, this is wisdom that has been said from ancient philosophers, and I'm going to quote someone here. What good does it do you to go overseas, to move from city to city? If you really want to escape the things that harass you, what you're needing is not to be in a different place, but to be a different person. And that's from Seneca, a Stoic philosopher. Now, when I land or when anyone else lands abroad or in a new place, it feels like a dream. Everything was new, and the newness is intoxicating. It's different light, different sounds, different everything, and you're taking the same photos you'd see online, and you feel happy. It's kind of like when you enter a new relationship and you're in that honeymoon phase, and everything is incredible. Then the novelty wears off and the quiet settles in that at least I was not ready for. The first thing that doesn't make it to the content is the community vacuum. You see online these group of friends laughing over dinner, wine, tapas, whatever. They don't show you the 6 months before that when you're going home alone and you go to yet another expat meetup and where you realize you had a dozen friendly 5-minute conversations that led nowhere. I did everything you're supposed to. The Facebook groups, the language exchanges, the meetup events, and on paper, it does work. You meet people. But a lot of the connections are surface level. Group chats would go quiet after one hangout, plans would fall apart, people would leave. Some people are only here for a couple months on holiday or a working vacation, and they go back. So it's hard to make those meaningful relationships. And you keep having the same conversation. So, what brought you here? and it's on repeat, and it oftentimes would never go deeper. Part of that is the nature of expat and social life. It's transient by design. Part of it is something specific to Spain I didn't understand going in. Social circles here tend to be deep and long-standing, especially for locals. They're built over years, often since childhood. People are warm, genuinely warm, but they're not necessarily looking for new friends. As an outsider, you're not just trying to make friends, you're trying to find ways into groups that have been solid for a couple months, years, or decades, and it takes time. And to consider, when you leave home, you're leaving relationships that you yourself have built over years with friends, family, and otherwise, and you can't just replace those after a few months going to a couple meetup events, hoping to find the one, right? And the loneliness that came from that was different from the kind that you might expect. At least personally, I expected to miss people back home, and I do. What I didn't expect was the specific feeling of being completely invisible to people, of realizing that I could go days without a real conversation if I didn't force one, right? We're all so focused on thinking about ourselves, a lot of other people aren't necessarily thinking about us. That kind of isolation has a way of turning you inward. And with no distractions and no one to fill the silence, you're forced to sit with yourself, with anxiety, with things that you moved to Spain to get away from. And the problem it was becoming was clear. It wasn't my surroundings. What I want to talk about now is the bureaucracy. And people talk about it, and I'll start by saying I was actually quite fortunate that my experience with Spanish bureaucracy, by and large, was a positive one. But for some people, it feels like running straight into a wall. And influencers online sometimes mention paperwork like it's a quirky part of the adventure, or you'll see videos where they get their acceptance letter, but you don't see the journey that got them there. And for many people, it's not an adventure. It is genuinely one of the most frustrating things you will deal with in your entire adult life when you're trying to get a visa to live somewhere. Now, here's the basic structure, and just so you know what you're walking into, but I'm not going to be giving you a breakdown of all of this. When you move here and you're not a European citizen, you need an NIE, your foreign identity number, to essentially do anything. You need this to open a bank account. Typically, you need this to sign a lease. Typically, you need this to get a phone plan, and that depends on you actually getting approved for the visa. Then from there, you need your empadronamiento, which is a registration at the local town hall, which basically says you live in the municipality you do. And this unlocks a lot of things. If you're a non-EU citizen, you also get a TIE, which is your actual residency card. Now, you might be thinking, that doesn't sound like that much. Each of these documents I just mentioned, or IDs, depends on having the previous one, and getting one can be its own battle. As I said, my own process wasn't too bad, and I really only ran into hiccups with my empadronamiento, where I needed to go multiple times and provide different paperwork, and that actually was one of the last documents I got. But recently, I had 2 friends go through this, and it really showed me how bad it can get. They did seemingly everything right on paper. They not only worked with an immigration lawyer, but they spent months gathering all of their documents. They got official translations, they secured apostilles, submitted everything, and waited. They heard back and they said, well, we need a little bit more paperwork. Oh, also you owe taxes because you lived here for a little while, and something else. And they went to these offices, had conversations, and they got contradictory information depending on who they spoke to. One person said a document was missing, they brought it back. Now a different document was needed, or they didn't submit something completely, or a payment wasn't made, and they got stuck in this classic come back tomorrow loop, talk to someone else, and even the experts that they were working with, both tax and immigration experts, were kind of left stumped. And eventually their application was actually denied, and they were left with rejection. Now, in their case, they are reapplying to give some silver lining, but that is the worst case, right? You come, you uproot your life, and you seemingly have gone through all the steps to do it reasonably, and you get denied. And that happens for a lot of people. And I will say the process has improved in some regions, but it's a real reminder that there is some friction that is in the system, and it does depend largely on who you get. Appointments are hard to get, and the process varies so much by city. The advice from one expat forum or from your lawyer may differ or be completely useless or irrelevant in your situation. Good example from my case, I was told that I needed my NIE before I could go get my residency card. I was stuck in this process of trying to get it, and I actually was able to get it without it. So it really does depend. And it grinds you down in a way that's hard to describe because, especially if you don't speak the language all that well, you start to feel a little bit hopeless and you're fighting for a place that doesn't necessarily want you here. For me, the bureaucratic struggle became tied up with everything else that was going wrong and one more thing that wasn't quite going the way I imagined it. And this was the low point. 6 months in, I was lonely, stuck in paperwork, and running out of the optimism I had arrived with. I was sitting in my apartment one afternoon and I was just staring at some of the paperwork, and it finally made me admit the things that I'd been avoiding since before I booked the flight. Moving abroad doesn't fix anything. It just removes the distractions that were covering it up. You bring yourself with you. I genuinely believed, like many people, that moving to a new country would hand you a new version of yourself on a nice, pretty piece of paper, that the Spanish lifestyle would ease anxiety, that a new social scene would fix my habits of pulling away from people. None of that happened. The opposite did. Without my usual routines and regular support systems, these things got louder, not quieter. And my anxiety didn't disappear. It just found new things to attach to, like navigating a foreign language, getting lost in a bureaucratic system. My habit of isolating myself didn't go away. It became my default, which made the loneliness worse. I had moved away from a life that I wasn't entirely happy with, but I'd never really defined what I was moving toward, and I had no way to outrun the patterns I've been carrying along for years. That realization, it's hard. But it was also the first honest thing about myself that I had really had to think about in quite some time. And once I stopped pretending the problem was external, I could actually start to do something about it. The loneliness forced me to get comfortable in my own company, which, to be honest, I'd never really done before. It pushed me to take social risks that I never would have done before. While the bureaucracy was infuriating at times, it also taught me that I was capable of pushing through things that felt like impossible. Every small win, getting a document sorted, figuring out the system, actually started to build something. Not the confidence that I'd find in moving to a new city, but a real confidence that's earned through effort and friction. Moving to Spain didn't fix me. It held up a mirror and made it impossible to look away, and that turned out to be exactly what I needed. Now, really quickly, if any of this sounds familiar, if you felt a gap between what you expected and what actually showed up, drop it in the comments. I generally like to hear what your experience has been, and I'll actually leave a link to a survey down below that I'm putting together to understand a little bit more about people's experiences when they first land in a new country or a new home. Now, you've had this life-changing realization, and you're starting to do something about it. So what comes after that? After you survive the loneliness, you get through the paperwork, and you stop pretending the problems are outside of you, you start to build something real. And it's slower and it's less cinematic than anything you've seen online. That doesn't get clicks, it doesn't get engagement, it's not what sells, but it is actually yours. For me, that meant redefining what success actually looked like. I stopped chasing big social circles and I started to put in real effort into smaller number of genuine connections. Making Spanish friends takes not only time, but real investment. Learning the language beyond the basics, understanding how social plans work here. The weekdays are often better than the weekends, since weekends tend to be family time. Being the one who extends the invitation and actually follows through. It's not effortless, but when it works, it's real. And I actually have made some genuine Spanish friends from here in Malaga, and it's been pretty special. I also learned tools to make the bureaucratic side manageable. A gesture, which is basically a local administrative professional who helps handle a lot of the hard stuff, and it's worth every euro. I started celebrating the small administrative wins, getting my digital certificate, and recently just getting my health card, and finally sorting through the process that I'd been stuck on, because that actually represents something. Control, progress, evidence that I could figure this out. I started to put more energy into this YouTube channel, not just as a hobby, but as a way to process what I was going through and to connect with people who were in it too, or were just interested in this experience. The isolation forced me to build a community in a different way, one based on shared, honest experience rather than just a shared location. The real opportunity of moving abroad isn't finding a life without problems. Problems are a good thing. It's becoming someone who can handle them. The resilience, the self-reliance, the perspective you get from having your entire worldview changed and then rebuilt. That's the part that sticks with you. That's what actually changes you. So, what don't moving abroad influencers tell you? That the loneliness is real and it lasts longer than an Instagram reel, that the paperwork can genuinely break your spirit or even affect your ability to live here, that whatever you're carrying at home, well, it comes with you on the plane, guaranteed. But also this, those hard things are the point. The loneliness can push you towards real self-knowledge if you let it. The frustration builds into a resilience and determination that you can't get any other way. The influencers sell you a finished product that only tells a small part of the story. The actual value is in the process of building it yourself, and that process is messy. I came to Spain chasing something I saw online. The life I have now looks nothing like those posts. It's better because it's real. I earned it by going through the hard parts, not around them. If you're thinking about making a move, or you're already in the middle of it, don't chase the fantasy. Lean into the friction. Whatever comes up, the loneliness, the frustration, the old stuff about yourself that you thought you'd left behind, that's where the real work is. And that's where the growth is waiting for you. If any of this resonated with you, please subscribe for more honest takes about what it actually takes to build a life abroad. If you're interested in my travels or journeys around Spain, and seriously, tell me in the comments what was the hardest thing for you that you didn't expect if you've moved somewhere. If you're interested, I have a survey link below and you can let me know there. I'm gathering some data as I'm working on a little project and any feedback is really helpful. Anyways, thanks so much for watching. I'll see you on the trail.